Not trying to look cool or anything, but for me personally, I would have to say my favorite Reddit April Fool's event would be the one in 2018. A not so well known Reddit experiment that was called the Circle of Trust. Now, for the few of you who know this event, you would know every user could create a circle with a password. Anyone who could guess your password had the choice to either join the circle and gain the ability to chat in a secret chat with only the people in the circle, or you could betray the circle by destroying it. The biggest circles in such an event ended up being the ones with passwords with medium difficulty. The easy passwords would get too many users too fast, inevitably leading them to be betrayed. And the ones that were too hard, well,
it's eternity in there.
I'm not exactly sure what the social implications are of such an experiment, or if there's any information to be gained from it at all. I had simply stumbled upon a video describing the event one day, and for some reason, I loved the concept. However, it wasn't this Reddit April Fool's event most people think of. No, instead, it was the one that came out a year prior. This event would lead to the inevitable creation of the most popular r/place clone the internet has ever seen. For 3 days during r/place, people had the power to place pixels on a virtual canvas. And then after? Well, there was no after. It was there, and then it wasn't. It was supposed to be a simple April Fool's joke for fun, but for many, it turned out to be something much cooler. People wanted more. There needed to be something to fill in the hole left by the disappearance of place. And those who never participated wanted a second chance to get in on the action, if only there was something out there to help people with this issue. Due to the demand, more r/place clones started popping their heads out. A lot of the clones of r/place were made, with some of them diverting slightly from the original thing. Some had a chatting system, others had interesting canvases that weren't just square boxes. There was a lot of variety. However, the main idea of r/place would remain. A bunch of random people would come together to place pixels on a virtual canvas. One of these clones that would one day become the most popular r/place clone came out only a day after r/place ended. I mean, how can you not with this gameplay? Coming out so fast, it was really riding on the hype still surrounding the experiment. This was also combined with the fact the creator, Auments, did a little advertising to try and spread the word of his new creation, named Pixel Space, which was soon renamed to Pixelplace. Using code from an open source project, like so many others were doing, it was able to get out just as fast. It wasn't the first, however. It would become the most popular as time went on. It's not like those other clones would be upset that someone used the same open source code they had, and then became more popular than them. This, in comparison to the Pixelplace we have today, is much more simple, and it's not hard to reminisce over these early days. Early on the site, there wasn't that much separating it from the other r/place clones that were coming out. However, the active development and constant updates would help Pixelplace become its own thing. But, honestly, compared to the other clones, Pixelplace had much more constant updates than the others have. One of these first updates was removing the timer that r/place had. A controversial opinion at the time, but one that would come to define the feel of Pixelplace. One other update that would come out this year was the implementation of what we call today the V1 UI. A nice pixelated art style that many people wouldn't want to see go away. Another thing that would start showing off the differences between Pixelplace and other clones would be the other canvases. More control over them would come out later, but that didn't stop them from being different from one another when you joined. For example, on the canvas 666, you could only draw with a grayscale, and places like LSVRP was much more focused on war than the art-filled canvases at the time. As a matter of fact, 2 players most people would know today would start playing on this map. Its RP-like nature would help create some ideas for canvases in the future. Though it was hard to get a bunch of randoms on the internet to start playing by your rules. And with the first emergence of simple bots happening around this time, people felt like there needed to be a more effective way to deal with the rule breakers. Well, the caption system at the time would deal with the bots, but for the players, for that, 2 new mods were introduced, those being Cuzly and Gunsurth. And if you know anything about Pixelplace, one of those names look way more important than the other. But for now, they were just mods, and they would indeed help with controlling the anarchist nature of Pixelplace, which would be nice as more and more canvases were being added. There was 3, and then 6, and then 7. All of them not as important as the main canvases at the time, but definitely were adding upon the foundation of Pixel Place. Yep, nothing important about any of those new canvases. Definitely not. Continuing in the direction Pixel Place had been heading, that being in a more war-oriented gameplay, 7 was introduced, a canvas that took the shape of the world map. This is one many players know today as the most popular canvas, but back then it was simply another canvas to be added to the ever-growing list. That being said, there was a level of hype not generally seen with other canvases, and at the time the players on it were higher than normal. But surely it was just a fad and everyone would go back to LSVRP. Due to people becoming more focused on who they were rather than what they were making, an in-game chat and usernames were added. This created a level of more personal relationships between people. Stupid fucking people! It was also in this year guild tags were added. As the name suggested, there were guilds that people could join that normally had a united goal. Now, joining the guild didn't mean you had to follow what the guild wanted. It was just another layer of simplicity that was added into the game. It was a welcome change and surprisingly not added sooner, as many people had already gone to the Discord to chat there, or in the original r/place, talk on their own subreddit about what they wanted to do next. Some more colors were added to the game by vote, those colors being these. This vote came just in time for a new canvas that had been added, that being 8. With the still popular 7, people wanted a more RP-focused experience when it came to Warfare. There may have been a few house rules on 7, but if someone felt like it, they could just...
It's eternity in there.
8 aimed to be more RP7, and almost to prove that, dotting, which was originally allowed on 8, was banned soon after its introduction. This would be a place of war, peace, and history. This was a place of legends. I mean, how could you forget about that conquered all of Africa for months, or for controlling all of Europe for years, or
it's one
for
thing to attempt a
controlling
deep
the
dive into
world
the lore of Pixel
forever?
Place, but to gloss over the bedrock of its most tumultuous,
Yeah, I'm going to take the little baby route and skip over the 8 stuff. If I really wanted to, I can make an entire video on just 8. No reason to sidetrack the entire video just for one aspect of the game. Alright, got it? Cool. With the implementation of these 2 war-based canvases, both being the world map with countries, it was bound that a few patriotic people would come together to make their country's flag. I mean, the same thing happened on r/place, but what if it wasn't just a couple people? What if it was a fuck ton? How far could these nationalistic users go? The Turk invasions were some of the first real invasions the site really had. It was a group of players coming together to make the world red, a color most related to the country of Turkey on Pixel Place. Of course, many people didn't like this, and this annoyance of the Turks would continue, never really going away, even after the raids had. 2020 started off with a virus, not of the site, but rather real life. The government had recommended that people stay isolated from one another, and with the stimulus checks being paid out to people try and tide them over until it was over, many people found themselves with a lot of free time to kill. And I mean, why not spend it on a computer game about placing pixels? This was a very strong start for growing the site. There was even rumors of a V2 going around since late 2019. If Almans was fast enough, he could make good use of the new players coming to the site. Surely, it would come out any day now. The next update was the implementation of the Prime Island on 7. The Prime Island was a location on the map that was most accessible to premium users. What's a premium user? Well, I'm glad you asked. Just head over to the in-game shop and pick up the subscriptions for only a few bottle caps a month. What? You don't like microtransactions in your pixel placing game? Well, you wouldn't be alone. Not only for the monetary reason, but there were also a few other reasons why some people didn't like it that much. One of those reasons being the way it looked. Ew. Later on, hopefully, in V2, the island would be updated to look better. Surely, it was going to come out any day now. For better or worse, 7 and 8 were becoming some of the most popular canvases, with the gameplay of both places feeling totally different. You go to 7 to dot and fuck around, and you go to 8 to grow an empire. If you try to do the vice versa on either or, you might have a bad time. This is why some people thought it was odd that 8 didn't have the Prime Island, or Antarctica for that matter, but don't worry, V2 would help fix all those problems. Surely, it was coming any day now. As a side effect of the longevity of the game, and the unique personality of its players, cult-like groups would form in Pixel Place. One of those cults being the bread cult, a cult where they worshipped bread. Bread. These cult-like fascinations would lead to the creation of an official cult led by a user named So Many Names. So Many Names would have readings that he would preach to his followers about bread. There is also a bread icon in Pixelplays and the official Discord today, possibly based on this event. Some other more normal groups formed were actual guilds like Hung and Folk. Those would spend most of their time on 8, but in the case of Folk, they wouldn't just stick to 8. 8 was very difficult and time consuming for just one person, so either joining or creating a popular guild was almost necessary. The world of Pixelplays was starting to grow into its own thing. By now, it had retained very little from its predecessor it originally claimed to be a clone of. 8, 7, and so many user-created canvases, some with their own specific rules, others filled complete anarchy. The few resemblance of old times were guilds like Void, a guild that, like in the original Pixelplays, was on a mission to turn every pixel black. Well, when there isn't a multi-botter in the way that is. But everyone, in their own way, was happy, and this time would one day in the future be seen as the start of the golden era for Pixelplays. But before that,
Ain't nothing like a phone gimme.
So this is called Pixelplays. Well, how can you be anti-neutral? How can you be anti-neutral? Yippee!
Drew Donnell, a YouTuber known for making map game content, created his first ever video on the site. This video, and soon videos, would create some well-deserved advertisement for the site. There's a good chance a player on the site you know today joined because of him. However, at the time, people didn't look at Drew as some overall good for the site. Many people were annoyed of the consequences of Drew, like the queue system added to keep up with the new abundance of players, while other players were annoyed with dealing with new players who would try and mimic what they saw in the videos, like drawing Swiss flags, as Drew had done in one of his later videos. There's a reputation that came with these new players from Drew, that they were more idiotic than normal, and that they were ruining the site. After waiting through the queue, you couldn't even do what you wanted to with the annoying Drew doing what they wanted. Well, Drew's impact and new players were here to stay, eventually leading to a new canvas just for Drew and his fans. With the new influx of players, it would be a perfect time for Almonds to release the new V2, with all the features he had been teasing in the Discord. There were multiple things people were asking for that Almonds promised would show up in V2. All they had to do was wait just a little longer. Surely it was going to come out any day now, right? Not impacted nearly as much as 7 from Drew's invasion at the time was 8, which was, by the way, having an explosive year. Guilds like Nuwa, Spay, CSNA, USSR, Selge, and Kane, oh god, the bet with Kane, were all notable guilds that were all able to have their own accomplishments on the canvas. No lifing the game to keep their territory as long as possible. There was of course other guilds, not focused on 8 like Fort, that were created around now. But with something missing, Fort wouldn't be very popular until much later. However, a player that had been doing a lot up until this point was a user named Almos. This time they were advocating for stricter moderation on 8. With the increase of guilds and users, the lack of moderation on 8 was becoming a real issue at the time. So with Almos at the head, he was able to convince Almonds to let more mods moderate 8. Another player who had been doing his own activities was Krev, who had just made a soon-to-be popular canvas called KWW, one that rivaled PWW. Alright, come on, this is getting ridiculous. It's been over a year since V2 was teased. Well, where is it? There had been new canvases, impactful guilds, crazy MVP history had been going on, funny drama, bots were becoming an issue again, and even the Void had been doing some shenanigans. So where was V2? Was it ever going to come out? You know what? I don't even think I want a V2. The implementation of V2 was kinda big. Let's just list off a few things that were implemented. A completely overhauled UI, shop, PP coins, bug fixes, faction descriptions, canvas administrators, and not too soon later there would be things like daily spin rewards, rainbow usernames, the coin islands, and a bunch of backend shit. Probably, I'm not allowed there. There was a lot added to V2, and a lot of people's suggestions from the past few months had been added into V2, and with the beta testing from the mods, It was made sure it was thoroughly tested and made sure to be acceptable. It was definitely an exciting time, to be sure. So much stuff was added, and with more stuff coming out, one after the other, surely nobody had any problems with this new version. Well, let's look at the alternative name the community named for this important event. Well, it's definitely not the most flattering name, but what was the problem? People had been waiting so long for V2. Why weren't people happy with it? Well, first of all, there was many people who missed the old pixelated UI compared to the newer modern UI. Technically, there wasn't much benefit over one or the other, it was more personal preference. There was also the implementation of more microtransactions, and with the implementation of PP coins, the in-game currency, it made people feel like predatory practices were starting to slip into the game. Without any proof, the pay-to-win accusations came flooding in when people realized you could pay money for pixel bombs that would automatically place a bunch of pixels, giving you what they saw to be an obvious advantage. As time went on, people would view V2 as a very important, overall good thing for the site. But at the same time, people thought of it as a purge and dissatisfied. This time not led by Elements, but by Cuzly, a popular mod, a new update was coming out. The decision would be the implementation of a system that would stop anyone from dotting the map. It was supposed to promote a more fun gameplay, while getting rid of annoying players who didn't contribute anything. As it would turn out, people at the time would still find ways around the system. Because of the sloppy implementation, dotting was still an issue. In worst cases, you would get dotted. You would try to fix your borders and then get in trouble for dotting. This system would be removed in the following year. A few more updates would come out that would try to win back the community a bit, like some updates to the Coin Islands and Prime Island. Those were some okay updates. I mean, people had been complaining about the look of the Prime Island forever, but updates that only targeted paid content didn't help the people that were already upset with the direction the game was going. At least this was around the time the VIP system was implemented, given out to Nim, the first ever person to get VIP. VIP was basically a tag given to only a select few people who contribute in some way to the site. I mean, you would be surprised by the people who don't have VIP. Ow. Oh, thanks, I guess. Man, what a way to leave off such a jam-packed year. Well, that wouldn't be quite accurate, as one last thing happened that year, that being the Sarpy-Israel scandal. Sarpy and Israel were two players on Pixelplace that on the surface were unimportant, to say the least. What started this drama was a server made by either Sarpy or someone else that had a bunch of other Pixelplace players. It was on that server that, allegedly, Sarpy posted nudes of himself. Israel found out about this and asked around for a link to the Discord server. Both people were underage at the time. Sarpy posted them publicly in the server, so not only Israel, but many other people as well knew about them. Word got out about the server, and after an investigation,
28 stab wounds.
both Sarpy and Israel were banned. Nobody else on the server had saved the images in any way. They were also deemed to simply be bystanders in the event, so it was ruled that they were all fine. Quite an interesting moment to this whole ordeal is the video produced by Israel after said event.
Is a fucking and she'll burn in hell. Karlober, no, not Karlober, sorry. God, I hope it's in hell. Be careful. But Sarpy, I know you live in Europe. I will fly to Czechia. I will you little bitch. You fucking. I hope you die in hell. I will find you with a hacker thing and this gun, you little bitch. I know it's very small, but I will still that. Actually, I will bring a knife. I will stab the camera. Never mind.
Starting the year off, Almos decided to once again go on one of his creative adventures. This time, the idea was to create a Pixelplace parliament of sorts. This parliament would be made up of parties with their own ideas and wants that people could vote for. These parties had a real weight on the changes of the game, and would actually make some in-game changes, like the syncing ban and MVP. Now, of course, these parties didn't have the ultimate say in what went into the game, as it would not only have to go through Almos, but also Almens, who was surprisingly okay with the Pixelplace parliament. However, even with most changes dictated by the parliament, changes would one way or the other find themselves being implemented into the game.
You better add me to the video. I swear to God. Add me to the video, CubeStar. I'll fucking do it.
Not helping the bot problem was the proper implementation of GeckoBot. On something like 8, it was easy for a bot to be banned, but on something like 7, bots constantly broke the rules. At the beginning of Pixelplace, it could be argued that there were actually more safeguards from bots, as now they were actually 100% allowed on 7. You just couldn't do some stuff. Of course, most botters disregarded these simple rules and did whatever they wanted to. Oh, and by the way, the anti-dotting system was still in place, so you couldn't even dot a bot. Sorry guys. Anyway, a new update that added user avatars just came out, allowing you to draw whatever you wanted as your avatar in Pixelplace. A welcome change, as guilds had been able to do this for some time now. It helped people express themselves even more than they could before, or just draw dicks too. Now with the new avatars, let's do a quick check over at 8 to see how they are doing. A new guild named Rome had been taking over MVP. At first, it could be assumed that they just had a lot of people who were very dedicated, but after an investigation, it was found that they were using an auto-clicker named Invinca Miles to give them an extra speed on 8. Making this investigation public highly increased the usage of this cheat until it was patched. It was also found that Rome, the player, and another player had been banned for IP grubbing and doxing other people. Rome was gone. And so was their land. So it wasn't long before people started a land grab to try and get as much as possible. Moving along to another canvas, this was a new one created by Krev. This would be Krev's second canvas, this time called Krev's Great War. It was a sequel to his previous canvas with some new changes. This version of Krev's canvas would surpass its prior one after some time, and comfortably become the canvas to go on when you're bored of 7 but don't want to go to the cringe-filled 8. Pixelplace is as if r/place and 4chan had a baby. Do you remember when I said this in my previous Pixelplace video? Well, the more I research about Pixelplace, the more accurate I believe this situation to be true. And a time that especially shows this off was on April 26, 2021, when someone said they were going to go shoot up a school. All of this happening in the Pixelplace chat. Wow, another unfunny guy in chat. What's new? Well, crazy enough, the police would actually try and get into contact with Almonds to try and get information about this user. After a bit of back and forth and the information being sent over, there wasn't much information for a while. This was of course until Almonds got an email.
You've got mail.
As it would turn out, the user was being 100% honest with his intentions, as when the police arrived at his house, there was evidence that he was preparing to commit such an act. For his cooperation, Almonds got a medal of sorts. Guild Wars. Guild Wars was a new update that basically activated a square on the map that you would have to try and place as many pixels in as possible in about 2 minutes. Getting first place would award you with guild points. The more points your guild has, the higher you are on the leaderboard. There was of course other ways to get points other than this, just placing pixels would do, but Guild Wars were much more efficient. I mean, it was theoretically possible for just only a single guy to become the #1 guild if they were extremely good at Guild Wars, but the amount of effort and time that would take would be insane, especially since there were guilds with thousands of players. The next day after Guild Wars were implemented, the anti-dot system was removed from the game. The amount of disdain for the system basically forced Almonds to remove it. The system stayed in place for Drew's canvas, however. While most people were happy this buggy system was removed, and others were somewhat grumpy about it, there was another group that decided to use it as an opportunity for a little bit of trolling. A new guild named Nuts was formed by a user named Big Boss Sauce. The purpose of this guild was to be massive fucking trolls. It didn't matter if it was NSFW or some racist stuff, they were going to do it. It also didn't matter where they did it as well. You could be on 7 or Drew or KGW, it didn't matter. You were going to be on the receiving end of some funny ha-has. It didn't even matter if you were on a canvas or not, as even the chat wasn't safe from the constant wave of harassment. Over time, the guild would be cleaned up and mods would ban some of the worst offenders. The interesting thing is the very direction the users that were in the guild went. You see, the user Big Boss Sauce would come back after this event as the user Sorrytear, which, if you don't know, after a redemption arc would become a global mod. Even though their past personality may still be intact, I believe they are seriously a competent mod who takes their role seriously, some of the time. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, there was a user named Sakura. This user would end up becoming the second most known troll in Pixelplace history, just behind Shriga. After the banning of most of the people from Nuts, it was eventually disbanded, and later a guild named Nust would be created in its honor. That basically didn't do much of anything, besides stay as a reminder of what was. Some other trolling was happening in a different Discord at the time. In the Kane Discord, there was a seemingly normal file sent to one of the admins of the server. After taking their time not to check it with virus total, They decided to open the random file from a complete stranger. It didn't take long for the executable to get his Discord account completely hacked. The person who sent the file, a member of AMG, took control of his account and proceeded to nuke the entire server. Then right after, another member hacked the account of the Kanae's guild leader and deleted it.
Nobody's reading this, right? Nobody cares. Nobody cares what your stupid ass did. This is all bullshit. This is all gay. It's all fucking stupid.
Because I think that's cringe poo-poo caca.
I know what you're talking about.
After this scary incident, there was a different server made where only a select few people from Pixel Place could enter, hopefully negating the problem Kanae's server had. In any case, this server wasn't made for a specific guild. Instead, it was a group of some of the most notable people, who, some might argue, had the most control in Pixel Place's direction. Some would assume Almans was the one making the changes, but you would come to find the Pixel Place Parliament was actually making some changes as well, but only a select few truly realized who was pulling the strings behind the scenes. Nah, I'm just joking, they're just a bunch of goobers. Can I get an invite? A new year. Would you look at that? In a move nobody saw coming, there's a new r/place event this year, taking place almost 5 years after the last one. This event was a second chance for those who missed the first one, so many people flocked to this event. There was also the fact that, in the 5 years since 2017, their internet had changed quite a bit. This time there were huge streamers, constantly live streaming themselves on the site. These people held much more power than even some big subreddits. The only downside is that whenever these people went offline, mostly everything they did would also be removed. This is to say, this caused much more attention to Pixel Place once more. Sadly, there weren't any ads this time. Like the smart, productive game web developer he is, Almans got into creating the best update he could for new waves of players to hopefully retain some of them. So after a few months, he released V3. Oh wait, no, never mind. He instead released an official bot for premium users. Now, jokes aside, this is actually a decision I understand. Bots are a serious issue on Pixel Place, so why not make an in-game bot that you have full control over? Sure, you could be constantly fighting with bot makers, or you could just make everyone use your bot and control its usage. Now, putting it like that doesn't sound that bad. So why are bots still a big problem today? The only problem is that there was a lack of incentive for people to use the official bot. Not only did you have to pay real doubloons for it, but in comparison to what people had already been using, it was much worse. At least he was trying. At least in the next update, forums were added to Pixel Place where people could suggest updates, plan war, diplomatize, or just talk about whatever. An alright update that people still use quite frequently. And it looked like the good updates just kept coming, as there were more colors added into the game that were once again voted on by the community. And then, only a few months later, he implemented ads. Wait a minute, ads? Well, the update also added gold ore that you could mine once a day to eventually smelt into gold bars to upgrade your pickaxe to get more gold, or to do that and do the other thing. What is this game about again? Oh right, placing pixels. There was also some cosmetic things like gold and rainbow colored profiles. The microtransactions were kinda cool, but were the ads really necessary? Had Pixel Place really had the need for ads? I don't know, maybe Pixel Place is in the constant state of being in the red, but it didn't take long for the ads to be removed anyways. It was also around this time, funny jokes started to spread around Pixel Place. You see, there were 3 users that on their own didn't resemble each other very much. The important bit was the 19 at the end of their names, which was a funny coincidence that people pointed out. It didn't take long for a few people to call that 19 lol 19, or vice versa, and when someone did, they would immediately defend themselves, saying, no, screeching, that they aren't the other person. This only made people want to do it more. It became such a big thing that now on April Fools, their names would be switched around. Even the creator of Pixel Place jokes around with it as well. There's also a correction I want to make regarding my comment in my previous Pixel Place video. So, are they the same person? No. Yeah, so when I said that, I was slightly incorrect, as it would turn out lol19 and solar19 are the same person, and vat19 is not related to them at all. Actually, as of right now, the vat19 account is actually run by Renko. After an incident that would come sometime after my video, lol19, now called solar19, would be banned for some bad stuff. Going back to the timeline, more mods joined in the start of 2023, one of them being a chat moderator now renamed to Sorryterror. A path of redemption was set out for this user, and he decided to follow it. Yeah, fuck it, B tier. Do you remember the Guild War update a while ago? Well, other than Spiral's 6K, a user named Klops had also been playing around with the system, being slightly better than most people at Guild Wars, and being very, very active in the game. He was able to win a lot of Guild Wars, raking in the points. Even with him being the only person in his guild, he was able to pass other guilds with thousands of players. After some back and forth, Klops was able to become the #1 guild all by himself, and just in time for another r/place event? Well, quite unexpectedly, another r/place was taking place this year. People had assumed there would only be one every 5 years, based on the last two, but the timing of this one didn't make sense. Well, that is until you understand that there was some drama surrounding Reddit around this time. However, this isn't about what was going on over at Reddit, but rather the effects it had on Pixelplace. This would prove to be an inspiration for a user of Pixelplace that would decide to make a video on the site, a documentary-like video not seen on Pixelplace before. In the video, it showed their own personal opinions on things such as bots, where there's an entire 2-minute span where they talk about why it's a bad thing. Then later that month, there was a botting restriction on 7, so it is possible this video could have inspired this decision. However, I highly doubt that. A dumb video won't actually cause some serious gameplay changes. Oh, and by the way, you can still draw on the oceans if you hold space while the browser is loading, and then you can see what other people did if you use /tm. Please fix. To continue talking about botting, there was a server setup named KGB. Basically, a bunch of different bot devs from Pixelplace would come to talk about whatever bot devs talk about. Hey, so my bot, makes swastikas and stuff. API. Yeah, so have you been making bots for a while? Coding, Python, source code. Right. So what did you want to talk about? Oh, here's Pixelplace's source code. What? Somehow the Pixelplace's source code was completely public. This server of random bot devs for Pixelplace had just stumbled across it one day. There were even some big names in that server like Almos. One day, after a mole in the group had revealed everything they were doing to Almons, all the members were interrogated.
28 stab wounds.
After the interrogation, only some of them were punished. One of those being Almos, who got temporarily stripped of his former global mod role for leading their group. The person that got their grubby mitts on the code was named Shuffle. Shuffle disliked Almons so much he would go on to cause a lot of trouble by doxing and mass multi-botting. This would cause a lot of trouble for Almons and Pixelplace players. As an effect of all this, Shuffle would end up getting the entirety of Estonia banned from the site. In the meanwhile, Almons would continue with the updates, creating what the community dubbed the NFT update, an update that even Almons wanted me to make sure to talk about. In an interesting update, Almons added paintings people could craft using chest opening system. These paintings would show up on your user profile. You could also sell them in the future if you wanted to. It was also tied into the mining system, because you can buy them with gold bars. What is this game about again? Oh right, placing pixels. The reason for the name of NFT update was how closely it related to real-life NFTs to some people. Depending on how you look at NFTs, you can see that as a good or bad thing. Arms was one of these players who saw it as a bad thing. Arms was a moderator and self-given VIP member that quickly grew into his status. However, this user was not experienced when given power, and most of the time mistreated it. They would also end up doing an entire list of bannable actions that, funny enough, wouldn't get him banned. After banning himself, possibly due to his frustration with the game, he would come back right after to only be banned, not of course because of any of these reasons, but because he was sharing his account. After being ratted on by a user Arms wants to keep anonymous due to their attention seeking, Almons would permanently ban his account. Arms' case only demonstrates the common sight for a moderator on Pixelplace. Sorry Terror, Soldier, Almos, and even Renko have all done bannable things, to then only become a mod, or do these bannable things as a mod. On April 17th, there was a bug found after an update to the game. It is unknown if this bug was always in the game, or if it only wormed its way in after the update. But either way, somehow, people found a way to draw on things that you're not supposed to be able to draw on. If you held space while the browser was loading, you would be able to draw on the oceans. There was a bunch of video and photo proof of this event, as well as a lot of excitement from the community, but the fun couldn't last forever, and only took a few hours before it was patched. A patch people wish they could remove was the Turks. You see, ever since the early start of Pixelplace, the Turks have always been around, and they have always been causing trouble. I should note that not all Turks are multi-botting trolls, as that would be ridiculous, and it is, however, a hotspot for most of the trouble Pixelplace was facing. Multi-botting trolls, rule breakers, and many other annoying things were coming at a high rate from Turkey, so there were talks of banning Turkey from the site, just how they done with Estonia. The only difference is that Estonia was only one person, while Turkey was a bunch of people. Because of this, the Turks decided to retaliate, letting their voices be heard. Now, how do you think they did this? By being civil and trying to communicate with people, or even calm down on the botting? Nope, instead they decided the best action was to start multi-botting daily on 7, saying that they shouldn't be banned. Yeah, that's still ongoing. And that, to my knowledge, is all the information I have on the site, meaning this video is coming to an end. For what I know, this is the most in-depth, expansive resource for learning about Pixelplace's history, from the early era from 2017 to 2019, when it was a much simpler time, before these things got all complicated, or 2020 to 2022, the golden era for Pixelplace, a time where people think back to the height of popularity for the site, and then 2023 to today, an unnerving time to be sure, without a good idea of what the future will hold. A time of the old people returning, popular people leaving, and most important of all, more history to be made. Of course, I wouldn't be able to do it alone, so huge thanks goes out to users like Almonds Without Arms, Almos, and especially Soldier, for providing so much information necessary for this video. And that's not even mentioning Soldier's information, date changes, script reading, and script editing. Now, I shall take my leave, not only for this video, but altogether. Both I and Pixelplace have grown since I first found it, and now I think it's time to say goodbye. The community, after you look past their 15-year-old comedy, is a really nice and supportive one, and I thank all of you that have been so good to me. Hopefully someone will step up in my disappearance to continue the documented history of Pixelplace. There are much more people suited than me after all. Soldier and Almos are some of the people that come to mind. I mean, there's an entire history of 8 for you to make a content about. I'm sure you'll do fine. I simply do not want to corner myself into one niche subject. I mean, out of the 5 documentary style videos on my channel, 3 are about Pixelplace. So, I hope you can understand why I want to move on. And I guess for the final time, test.